I just want to get back to what Christopher said. And of course, after Christopher was taken in, Miranda was read.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine that on the scene, once they brought them into San Antonio homicide, I would imagine, and this is how I would have done it, I would have brought them in uncuffed. I would have made sure that they were patted down, they had
Mm-hmm.
no weapons on them, because then an attorney couldn't say, well, they were not free to leave. Why did you not read the Miranda right on the spot? And
Right.
why didn't so I would bring them in unhandcuffed and then bring them in. And then once I started, of course, once you cross the threshold of probable cause, we know Miranda applies. Anyway, so Christopher starts telling us a story, and his story is, in sum and substance, I'll cut to the chase. Christopher claimed that Matthew pointed a weapon at him, and Christopher was able to manipulate the weapon, resulting in the female being shot, referring to Savannah. Christopher then stated that had the weapon pointed at him again, and he manipulated the weapon again, resulting in the male victim being shot. And according to the detective, Christopher Preciado's statement is inconsistent with the gunshot wounds suffered by Matthew Guerra and Savannah Soto, and the evidence located at the crime scene. Christopher Preciado intentionally discharged a firearm at Savannah Soto and Matthew Guerra with the intention of causing the death. The actions of Christopher Preciado resulted in the death of Matthew Guerra, Savannah Soto, and Savannah Soto's unborn child named Fabian. Some people are asking, well, do you think that was Christopher's gun or was that gun Matthew's gun? 100% it was Christopher's gun. If that was Matthew's gun, he would have left it on the scene. But a 19-year-old that has his own firearm, he takes it home with him. To me, that is 100%, what do you say, Mike? Conscience of guilt.
Of guilt.
He wanted
Right.
to keep his gun.
Right.
Even though it was used in a triple murder, he wanted that gun. So if that wasn't his gun, I believe he would have left it on the scene.
Right.
But because it was his gun, stupidly, he brings it home with him. And the search warrant recovers what, Mike? The gun.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. I was thinking something else. Yeah. So thankfully, it was there in his home, probably hidden under his bed or in a drawer somewhere. That's excellent. And the fact is that he can say whatever he wants about Matthew pulling the firearm. And I'm not saying Matthew's a good guy here, but once you get if you get the serial number, you figure out who owns that gun. It'll be a slam dunk for the police. But unless it comes back to being owned by Matthew, then Christopher, you're sorry, you get stuck with that firearm. That's yours. No two ways about it. And just think about it. If Matthew had the firearm and he was the one who brought the firearm to the meeting, he would have gotten, who's to say that when you look at Christopher's statements, like Matthew would pull the firearm out and he would have the jump on Christopher, but Christopher got the jump on Matthew. So it's pretty plain to see that that's Christopher's gun. It makes perfect sense that that's Christopher's gun. And by now they probably know whose gun it is. And definitely it'll come back to Christopher or some friend of Christopher's, and Christopher's had it for a while. As you say, and as someone in the chat too said a couple of days ago, no 19-year-old is going to give up his gun. No, that gun now has a history. That's his gun. And perhaps, that puts him in very good stead with some people in his neighborhood who he wants to be respected by, because he's now a hitter.
Mike, in addition to the serial number on the gun, the history of the gun, matching the spent shell in the car to the firearm, those are going to link that gun up to the crime. Whether, in fact, they'll be able to collect a projectile from the corpses, that's another thing. They don't normally do that. They may do it in a case like this. In that case, they could connect the projectile, which a pathologist would have to remove from the corpse, and then compare the ballistics from the projectile to the striations in the barrel of the firearm, which is like pretty much almost like 100% identification. Whether they do that or not, we don't know. But the history of the gun, where it was bought, chances are it's of course a stolen firearm, an illegal firearm. The gun was bought off the street, but even the investigators with the ATF, and they can do the history and the workup on the gun, and we'll know a little bit more about it. But I would say just about 100% that this gun is Christopher's gun.
Yeah.
And the other thing is he was allowed to tell his story after Miranda, and it doesn't match the wounds. The wounds were close contact wounds, which means if they were as reported and not in the affidavit by rumor that they were shot behind the ear, close contact, then his story makes no sense then. But he doesn't understand the science of ballistics or the science of gunshot wounds. But the detectives let him tell his story, and that'll be a very powerful statement when it does go to trial. Don't forget, this is a capital murder case, and he is facing the death penalty. We're going to finally get to it at almost 48 minutes in. We're going to finally get to play a little bit of the press conference here and see what they said. This was today. Of course, now it's been loading for so long, it's not going to play.
Most of the information I have here, I think you've already been privy to. I do have a little bit of new information. The information I'm going to give you, I will answer questions to clarify, but I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about anything else, simply because this is an open investigation and we still have a lot of work to do. So again, my condolences to the families of Savannah and Matthew.